If you're looking to make six figures online selling your skills and knowledge, but not sure how you can get started, by the end of this video, I'm going to show you my step-by-step framework on how I was able to take the skills I've learned in my 9-to-5 job and applied it into the market to make multiple six figures as a first-time founder. And I've also done this in niches where I've came in as a beginner, didn't know anything about the industry, and within my first year made multiple six figures in a totally different niche. And I'm going to compress all these learnings into this single video. Now, if you want to make six figures selling the skills that you have, the first step is actually to visualize your dream life, because we're not just talking about selling skills, but we're talking about entrepreneurship, because you don't want to be in a place where you're working, 80 hours a week trying to build your business and you just completely burn out and it ends up not being worth it. And the key here is that if you don't know where you want to go, meaning visualize what your dream is, well, you're never going to get there, right? And so let's go ahead and start with my personal story on how I was able to do it for myself so you can get some inspiration. So back when I was in university, that's me when I just graduated from college, from business school, I actually tried to start my own business straight out of college. So I won a pitch competition, a couple $1,000s they gave me as like a grant. And I was like, oh man, like I'm the best, like I'm going to do this. So me and my friend tried to start a business, completely failed, made zero money. It was just a waste of time. So I reflected back on that experience and I asked myself, okay, like why did I fail? And I didn't know. So I started reading a lot of books to learn about business, because obviously I didn't learn in business school how to start a business. What I've learned from reading all those books, I maybe read like 50 books in a couple months, was that I just didn't know how to sell any products and services. Had I known how to sell, had the skill set of selling, then I could sell technically anything. So that was the first step. The second step is through reading those books. One of the books that I stumbled upon was this one called The 4-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss. And it's one of the OG books on being like a digital nomad, which was extremely hot at the time. Long story short, it's like, you want to sell to people all over the world, but live in any country you want, work online. So like going to, let's say, a developing country where everything's cheaper and making dollars in the US, right? And so that would be that ultimate arbitrage. And so I was like, I want to live my life like that. And so with all these things together, I wanted to sell, I wanted to be able to be an entrepreneur, a digital entrepreneur, traveling and living wherever I wanted. So those were the goals. So what I decided to do is actually get a job at Oracle, which is one of the biggest tech companies in the world. Reason is because I lacked the knowledge of how to sell things. And so I thought that if I worked at a company where they were known to have a great sales organization to get to those multi-billion valuations, then I would be able to learn that skill and do it for myself and travel the world one day. So that's the vision I had for myself, which actually leads us to the second point, which is learning high value skills. Because if you want to sell your knowledge or your skill set to somebody else, you got to bring some values, right? So what are some high value skills? So providing services, in my opinion, is actually one of the easiest ways to start a business. You don't have to invest a lot of money into like stock, or you don't have to buy Facebook ads or anything like that. You literally just sell your time. And if you think about it, an employee is actually just a mini entrepreneur. You are essentially going to an interview to get a job, which they will pay you for your time or pay you for a certain result. So we're all kind of entrepreneurs. We're all kind of selling our time in a sense, and there's nothing wrong with that. So here's how I learned sales really fast at Oracle, and then I'll show you how I kind of applied it outside of Oracle, right? So in the beginning, when I joined Oracle, they had a lot of good training. I learned from a lot of great sales trainers, a lot of mentors and things like that. But there are also parts where Oracle training was lacking, especially on the lead generation side. So they didn't really teach you how to use LinkedIn and like social selling. That was like a new thing back then. Or they didn't teach you how to do like write cold emails and do outbound campaigns. And so I've took a combination of taking classes at Stanford, which Oracle paid for, taking communication classes, and also taking online educational classes, like similar to the ones I create now, on how to do cold emailing, LinkedIn, and all that kind of stuff back in the day. And so I combined it all together, and then I started doing it and started getting some results. I learned it really fast. Like I learned all this stuff in like 6 months. And then I got so good after 6 months that I started teaching other of my peers who started at the same time I did on how I was able to do these cold emails. And that's basically how I started teaching people sales just internally at Oracle, right? And I didn't even ask anyone's permission. I just did it. And then my manager got mad at me at the time. They're like, how can you teach people if you just started at this company? But I was getting results. So it is what it is, right? What's interesting is that after Oracle, I did pretty well, ended up in the top 1% in account executives. Then I moved to a startup, right? A YC-backed startup. And then, I had to generate my own leads, even as an account executive. And I remember this one specific time, I was looking in Salesforce, the CRM, and I saw that the emails that my colleagues were sending just weren't very good. And so I was like, oh, if these are good prospects, but the email was not good. So if I just reach out to the same people with a better email, I'm pretty sure I could get responses. So that's exactly what I did. From that same list, because I knew how to write emails, I was getting a lot of meetings from that. And then I remember the SDRs who's like owned those contacts got upset because they're like, we don't get paid if you reach back out. And then my manager, who was the co-founder at the time, he got upset. He's like, hey man, like you shouldn't be doing that. I was like, okay, cool, whatever. I won't do it again. No, you can see like I learned these things online mind and I applied it into my work and it started to do well. And by the way, if you want to book a direct call with me to learn about how you can sell your high value skills or learn new skills and sell them online and build a profitable business, make sure to book a time to talk on my calendar. I myself will personally be on the call to talk with you and see how we might be able to work together. So link is in the description, and let's continue with the video. After working in Silicon Valley for a while, I was like, okay, like I kind of feel like I know how to generate leads. I know how to sell. I want to do this for myself. How do you take these skill sets from your 9 to 5 and how do you transition from employee to an entrepreneur or employee to a founder, right? That's the question that everybody has. You know, like I said in the beginning, I was ready to live that dream. So I literally packed all my bags. I left my job and then I moved to Thailand because my friend was teaching English there as a university. I was like, I didn't really know where to go, but I want to go in Asia. So I just moved over there. So I tried a bunch of different stuff while I was there, right? So I didn't necessarily apply the skills I had from my job. I was like, okay, let me try travel vlogging. Didn't work out. Let me try creating a faceless Instagram account. Didn't work out. And then I remember I went to a co-working space and I met these 2 Russian guys and then they were like young like me. And then I was like, hey man, like how do you guys make money? And then they were like, oh, you know, we make books on the Kindle app. So they would just like, you know, pay some people to write the books, pay some people to do covers, and then they would just sell it and it would just work. And I'm like, is it really that easy to make money online? And then I was like, okay, well, if they're just like making these books real quick, I'm pretty sure that if I created some kind of online educational product, right, not a book, but like a course, which I learned from a lot of courses in the past, right? So I had some familiarity with it. I'm pretty sure that I can make money too. So instead of doing like random stuff that I didn't have any skills in, like running a faceless Instagram account or doing like travel vlogging, which I was not that great at, to be honest, I was like, okay, let me just teach what I know. And I know how to send cold emails. I'm pretty good at that. So the first time I started teaching people online how to write cold emails, literally just what I did in my normal job, but taught it online. That's when I first made my first $1,000 online. And then, you know, every month I just kept going up and up and up and up until the point where I was able to make like 6 figures just teaching people all the things I learned in my sales career, but just putting it online essentially. You know, different people will either take online courses or they might want to book me for teaching corporate session for their sales team. So there's different ways you can monetize that knowledge, but that's essentially how I hit 6 figures. And the thing about this whole experience I went through to do that is that you actually don't need anyone's permission to teach. I was teaching people how to send cold emails literally 6 months on the job at Oracle when I just kind of started. And even my management got mad at me because they were like, how can you be teaching? But in reality, as long as you get the results, you don't need 10 years of experience to do a job, to be honest, right? Like you can literally learn this stuff in like 3 months. As long as you can deliver a result, then you're good to go. Like literally, if I taught somebody how to write a cold email and they got results tomorrow, or like, let's call it 1 month, they are qualified to teach another person, assuming they got the same result I did, right? So it doesn't matter how long you've been doing something, it's about how good you are. All right, so to prove that it's not luck, I actually did this twice, okay? I did it in the sales B2B niche, teaching people how to generate meetings and close more deals for salespeople, consultant, entrepreneurs, that kind of stuff. And then around the time when NFTs were getting really popular, I became like a fan of this stuff. So I first came in as a speculator, just like looking at what's going on, buying different things. And I came in as a trader. So I made some money buying and selling NFTs. And I was like, you know what? I think I can like build a YouTube channel around this. So I started like an NFT YouTube channel called The Parallax, which at the time was like one of the most popular, you know, NFT YouTube channels, interviewed a lot of the top founders in the space and things like that. I started as a beginner. I didn't know anything about NFTs. I literally kind of just came in as like a speculator and just started making videos and sharing my opinions, sharing about like what's going on with the news. And then over time, after putting out content and kind of building a brand around that, you know, people started reaching out to me and saying like, hey, you know, I really like your opinion on this and that. I'm about to like build a company in NFTs or crypto or Web3. I'm just curious to know if you do consulting. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, what's your problem? And then I would kind of discover like what they actually needed and create services, consulting services around to how to solve those problems. I remember the first client for NFTs, specifically, it was a jewelry company coming into crypto. At the time, this is like way back in the last run, companies like Gucci and Louis Vuitton, they were all coming into NFTs. And so this company was a multi-million-dollar jewelry company. And they were just like, yeah, I just kind of want you to give me advice on like what I should do. And so I was like, okay, I can do that. And then they were like, okay, so how much you charge? And then I kind of thought about it. I was like, okay, well, if I help you, I'm pretty sure you can make money. So I'm going to charge $25K, right? Just $25K for like flat fee for my advice. And they actually just paid it. It was like one of the easiest sales ever, right? And so in that whole period, I basically went from a beginner to a perceived expert in like 6 to 8 months ish. And then from there, more and more people asked me for advice. And then I basically made multiple 6 figures doing consulting services in the crypto space. So now let's go ahead and apply apply this to you guys, because if you're watching this, chances are you might already have a job and you get paid pretty well, but you might want to apply it into the market and kind of start your own business as a founder, right? Selling services, or maybe like an agency doing things for other people. Or maybe you don't have any skills and you want to learn them like I did in crypto, and then offer services which you can do fairly quickly, right? So what are the things you have to think about? You got to ask yourself a couple questions, right? So the first one is, who is your ideal client, right? Like, who do you want to work with? For the B2B sales side, it was basically like sales and business development reps, account executives and founders who have to do their own sales, and they just need that sales education to generate leads and close more deals. For the crypto side, it was basically companies, Web2 companies, meaning like companies in the real world, not crypto world, who are already making money. They're coming into crypto. They have a budget to spend. They really want to go big on this, or they raised money, which makes it a lot easier for me to offer consulting services. So being very specific on who you're serving is pretty important for your particular sale. You know, it just depends on what you're selling, right? You also want to ask, like, is this a growing industry? You know, for some industries, like, they die, right? Like the newspaper industry is dying, so you don't want to be selling there. But let's say the creator economy is blowing up and everybody wants to do like YouTube shorts and TikTok and Instagram. That's like a booming industry, so that's easier to sell. So from my experience, you always want to kind of be in the industry that's growing, not dying, because it's just more easier to sell, right? Another question to ask is like, what pains do your ideal client have? Because if you don't solve a very specific problem, a problem that hurts so much that somebody is willing to pay money to make it go away, they're not going to buy your services, right? You can be an accountant. You can't just say like, hey, I will come do your accounting for you. It's kind of like, what makes you special? Like, why do I need you? And all that kind of stuff, right? Or do it myself. But if you say like, hey, you know, I'm an accountant specializing in expat taxes for US citizens living abroad, and I know how to optimize your taxes, because most accountants don't know how to do this because they're not specialized in all the different legal languages for people in your particular situation. And so as someone who is, you know, traveling and living abroad and all that kind of stuff, then I'm like, okay, well, let me know what you have to offer. Like, how can I be saving money on taxes, right? So find a specific problem that you have that you can uniquely solve, so you're not just like selling a commoditized service. Another important question you have to ask is, does your ideal customer have money to buy your solution? You know, being on different sales calls, selling my own services, I've noticed a couple things. The people that have money already are much more easier to sell. So for example, when I was selling consulting services to this jewelry company, so I was asking $25K up front. There was no negotiation, no back and forth. They were just like, okay, it's worth it, let's go. It was because this company was already making millions of dollars. So like $25K for a key advisor is pretty valuable for them, you know what I mean? But if you sell to somebody that's like living check to check and it's hard for them to make money and all these kind of things, if you're asking for like 5K, they might be like, I might have to take out a loan for that, right? And you really have to question yourself, like, do you even want to take their money, or do you want to help somebody else? Finding people who have money to spend in a growing industry will just make your sales process significantly easier. Now, if you're selling your own expertise, a tip I have for you is thinking back of who you were in the past, right? So when I started selling my sales, consulting, and courses and things like that, I really focused on creating the best course possible for my 21-year-old self. That 21-year-old self, me back then, was basically someone who was ambitious, willing to learn, willing to put in the work. I just needed the right information in order to execute to get the results I wanted, right? And so basically the way I taught and how I create videos is for myself back when I was younger. At that time, I remember there wasn't really much cool sales videos. It was mostly like older gentlemen kind of guys teaching sales, and it was very boring. Like, hello everybody, we're gonna teach you sales. And I was like, that's not really for me, you know? And so I kind of came in with this whole different style in the sales game. And so I attracted that kind of audience. And, you know, I mean, you guys are watching this, so I guess it attracted you guys, right? So it seems to have worked. So think about, like, for your specific situation, if whatever it is that you went through and what you wish you knew, think of yourself as you're going to mentor your younger self. And that's how you will convey the value to that person, right? It's kind of like, let me teach you everything I know about this thing so that you don't have to waste 5 years of your time. You can learn it all in like 2 months. That's the kind of attitude you want. And when you bring that attitude toward clients, whether you're teaching them, whether it's like a student-teacher relationship, or if you're providing agency services, it's kind of the same thing, to be honest, right? You are technically the teacher to an agency that knows nothing about what you teach them. That's how I would approach it, right? So now that we understand like how you can actually make money selling your services, how do you actually deliver on these services? And as simple as possible, there's 3 common ways to do this: done for you, done with you, and do it yourself. And I'll explain it real quick. Done for you is basically like you're doing the work for them. You're essentially selling your time or selling a result. For example, I could be like, hey, I'm a cold email lead generation agency. I will do all your cold cold emailing for you. All you have to do is take the meetings, right? So I'm doing the work for you. I'm selling my services to you as an agency, right? So you're selling your expertise, but you're not just selling your knowledge, you're actually doing the work. Now, done with you, it's like a combination where they got to do some work, you got to do some work, but you have to figure out what is the split of work. For example, if I said, hey, I'm going to coach you through how to generate leads with cold email, I'll hold your hand through the way. You write the first draft of the email, and then I'm going to keep correcting it and making it better and better to increase your response rate. But you're responsible for sending it yourself. I'm responsible for making those emails good. And so that would be an example of done with you, right? Where they do some work and you do some work. Do it yourself is more like an online course where I create the content one time and then you take the course and you go through the whole thing and you have to do it yourself. So there's many different ways you can do this. And obviously the more work that you do, typically the more you can charge. So for example, if I said, hey, I'll do your cold emailing for you, I might say like, okay, but you got to pay me a retainer and you got to give me a percentage of all the money you make. That's what a lot of people do. But if you're doing an online course, sometimes it might be like, hey, here's a fixed fee for the course. You have unlimited access to it. And then once a week, I do a coaching call, right? And so that's more like hands off a little bit. So it just depends on what your approach is. But I highly recommend if you're just getting started, doing the course route sounds good because it's like you make it one time, you sell it forever, which is, I get it, I've done it, right? If you're a beginner, you may not know exactly what people want, right? Especially in your particular niche. So helping people one-on-one is the best way to just get your foot in the door and start making money right away, right? Somebody might pay you like a couple $1,000s to like build their something or like do like Zapier integrations or CRM integrations, whatever it is. It's almost like a freelance model, right? You are still a founder, but you're still doing the work. And over time, you can hire different people and all these things and build an agency. But I would recommend if you're making money like today, just offer a service and see how it goes, right? Or you can offer coaching as well. That's a different tactic. So with that said, guys, if you do want to learn how to sell your skills and your knowledge for high prices online, just like how I'm explaining in this video, and if you want to work from anywhere in the world, as long as you have an internet connection or work in person if you want, I'm actually creating a new beta program and we're calling it Founder X for now. And what we're going to do is we're going to teach you my process on how to take the skills and expertise that you already have or skills that you want to acquire very quickly, like I did as well. And I'll show you how you can build a profitable online business, helping the customers you love by providing these type of services and expertise to them. And this is a beta program. The goal is to build a community of a new wave of internet entrepreneurs who found a way to make money online, similar to my dream back when I was in the past, right? But nowadays, because it's more common knowledge, it's more than possible than ever, right? Like you don't have to stick with sales and marketing like I'm doing. You could be teaching accounting, you could be teaching spirituality, literally anything that people will pay money for. As long as you have an internet connection and a laptop and a camera, you definitely can make it happen and use the skills. Especially if you have a high value 9-to-5 job, you can apply those skills into the market and be your own boss. So if that sounds something interesting or good to you, feel free to book a time to talk to me personally on my calendar. I put a link in the description to my personal calendar where you can talk to me so we can have some clarity on how we might be able to help you hit that 6-figure mark selling your high value services. So with that said, check the link in the description. I'll see you in the next one.